Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, why a newcomer could be ready to make an impact for the Texas Tech defense ahead of schedule, or maybe right on time. We're into it next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you as we are wrapping up the week and doing it on a note that is fun to talk about and will involve some of the guys that we've previously discussed, but we'll get into a little bit further some of the depth behind guys like Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez today, as we'll hear some sound from Josh Bookbinder, who presides over that group of linebackers, and some familiar names that you and I have mentioned a lot on this program before, but we'll kind of get into some clarity on maybe how or where they will slot into the mix as we get into 2024. Before we get to some of the specifics, let's take a listen to linebackers coach Josh Bookbinder talking about his room and what he hopes to see as far as numbers deployed on a game day.
I love my room right now. I think our personnel department's done a heck of a job identifying guys, and then we've done a great job as a personnel and coaching staff recruiting guys. And so, I mean, every guy in my room I love. I want to rotate at least 4 to 5 guys. So on any given Saturday, if we're playing with the effort that we're supposed to be playing with, there should be 4 to 5 guys rolling in there on Saturday.
I just still love the thought of a personnel department being referenced, which kind of reminds you of the way that this program is operating. But, yeah, it's not just the Robertson Rodriguez show, even though they're leading the charge. But you hear him talking about at least 4 to 5 guys that he'd like to see getting meaningful snaps on a Saturday.
Yeah, and it's probably not going to do you any good if you're Josh Bookbinder or whoever. If you go, I mean, our personnel department's not worth a damn. I hate my room. I mean, in fact, I wish I wasn't even here. No, I would say this and echo what Coach Bookbinder said. I love his room too. In fact, and we've said this brief or at different times in the offseason, I may like this position group maybe better than anything else on your team. I just think it's got small, medium, and large. It's got the whole menu. You've got proven, you've got depth, you've got the up and comer. You've got just some versatility with this group. You've got leadership, smarts. I mean, and when you think about interior linebacker at Texas Tech over the last 4 to 7 years. I mean, think about some of the folks that have come through here. Dakota Allen. I mean, Jordan Brooks was a first-round draft pick. I mean, Rico Jeffers, Colin Schooler. I mean, there's been some dudes that have played at these positions in recent years that are really salty. And I think you've got a handful of them right now that I think you can feel really good about, because I'm not so certain that you don't feel really better about anything on the entire team, including Taj Brooks, other than your interior linebacker spots. And it's plural. Like, you feel great about running back because of Taj, but do we really know what else is there? And that's just one position. But this is interior linebacker involves 2. And I mean, I just not sure if I could, be a bigger fan of the 2 guys in Ben and Jacob that are manning those 2 spots. But then you start factoring Bryce Ramirez, captain. You start factoring some of the depth, and we'll get into some of these other names, and it's a lot of fun to think about. But it sounds like Coach Bookbinder wants to get into some of that depth on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, and I got to say, going back over the last, I say handful of years, because, when you get old, it seems like just yesterday some of this stuff was happening. I guess some of it's been 7-8 years ago now, so that's a little more than a handful. But I really thought the program began to transition sort of in the latter stages, I guess, of the Cliff Kingsbury era even, and then into Matt Wells' time on campus, where even though the narrative for a casual would be it's Texas Tech, it's all offense, it's all passing, yada, 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 I began to really feel like kind of during the Alan Bowman era, again, the end stages of the Kingsbury era, that it wasn't actually your offense that I felt was the most reliable. I thought it was your defense more often than not that was keeping you in some positions to compete for wins in the fourth quarter. Now, you didn't go over the hump often enough, but it was really kind of sort of astounding to see, given the history over the last 25 years of this program, where sometimes defense has been an afterthought, and of course it has been an entirely offensive show. It was really kind of taking me aback to see the defense so consistently be able to compete. Now, was it all that pretty all the time? No. Was it full of all conference guys? Not necessarily. But, you know, you go on the road. I remember the Arizona ball game. You go on the road, you take on Arizona, and somehow you're like in the late third quarter winning a game like 13-7. I'm thinking, wait, do we compete in games this way now? Which is fine with me. You can win a game 3-0 for all I care. I'm not there just for 40 or 50 burgers or whatever. Just win the game. But I really thought you had hit a defensive stretch where you had sort of given yourself a pulse again on that side of the football, and you had sustained it. And you can go back to various DCs that maybe you want to credit. One of those guys might be the guy that's showing up with the team on August 31st in purple on the opposing sideline, and Keith Patterson. But my point is, I think a lot of that being sustained and established had to do with your linebacker play that you were really able to establish. Going back to a guy like you mentioned in Jordan Brooks, but then you get into Rico Jeffers, you get into the Colin Schooler period of time. And I really felt like in the middle, you were in a better spot than you had been in quite some time. It wasn't too long ago. We were talking about a pair of freshmen and guys like Blake Dees and Sammy Guavin, a transitioning basketball player who, by the way, Guavin made a go of it in the National Football League as well. So that transition worked out well, but it wasn't too long ago in Tuberville times when we were talking about that spot being quite the worry. Remember Kenny Williams as a running back or outside linebacker? I mean, you were talking running backs. Hey, can you play defense? So the worm has turned quite a bit as far as that position is concerned. And really, Chris, looking back over the years, some of my favorite Red Raiders, at least within the time that I've been watching Tech football, have been at that linebacker spot. Goes without saying a guy like Zach Thomas, but I think about a guy like Lawrence Flugents as well. Some guys that were just really fun to watch work the interior there. And we better savor the flavor because it's not always that way, but you've been on a nice little run here where you've had some good guys at that spot and you've somehow found a way to kind of restock that pond, right? It's more than just, yesterday that this began. There's a little stretch where it's kind of been in place.
And I think there's some gaps there where it wasn't very good, and that's when you kind of bottomed out a little bit. But yeah, you're right. Like the old flu shot, the Lawrence Flugents. I mean, that was Micah Alway was another name that I mean, he's still playing in the CFL. But Sammy Guavin, those were, and I think Texas Tech has done a really good job in overall in. Because Jacob Rodriguez wasn't always a middle linebacker.
Right.
This is somebody that, and like, you mentioned Kenny Williams, maybe that worked or it didn't work as near as well as some of the other position switches. But there's been some other candidates like that, okay, let's turn them into this. Let's take an athlete and teach them this. And I think that's really where it's worked. But I mean, you touched on KP. I think if you call Jordan Brooks right now, and he's making a lot of money, he's been one of the statistical leaders in the NFL per season on a tackle per season average. He would tell you, I owe Keith Patterson a great deal for what he got out of me and turned me into a first round draft pick. And he, KP also coached Rico and Schooler as well, and that was that's when you really kind of turned it. I think you nailed it. You shut down Mike Leach's Mississippi State Bulldogs in that bowl game, and what did you win, like 40-6? And they were befuddled because of what you did defensively. But this is a particular group that I probably feel the best about on your entire football team. It doesn't mean that they're going to be all conference or anything like that. But when you start looking at questions on your team and trying to figure out where you feel best or which position coach maybe can sleep the best at night or rest the most easy. And again, if everybody stays healthy, so knock on wood, it's Josh Bookbinder. I don't think I think that's And he may disagree with that and go, well, I don't have it all figured out, or we don't have everything settled, but there's just not anybody else that's got what he's got with Ben and Jacob right there. And those are two alphas, dudes that are fighting over the green dot, right? Right. You know, and in a good way, mind you, but that's just where it kind of separates. And then Bryce Ramirez too.
Sure. And I think it's kind of wild to consider the swap from a year ago at this time to now, where you sort of felt like maybe that linebacker group or the middle of your defense, at least on that level, was one you had a lot of questions about. And then the questions got even bigger.
Rodriguez. Merriweather. Yeah,
that's true. We can't leave him out of the mix.
Was a huge yes, and that's why it was such a big question. The Krishan Merriweather. Yes.
Well, and who's the other guy I'm forgetting that was there with Merriweather that you were having to replace? Is it Pierre that I'm thinking about? Maybe.
No, it's not Josiah Pierre. See, this is what happens.
God, when I apologize to whoever you are out there. I enjoyed watching you play football, but I can't remember your name right now off the top of my head. But point being, last year you go into the season defensive front. Feel pretty good about that interior. Had some high hopes for the edge. Didn't really come to fruition, but felt pretty good about that defensive line. Defensive secondary. You've got experience in spades, guys that have played a ton of football, and you had all the questions about maybe those inside linebackers. And now you kind of flip the script this year, and we're like, all right, who's going to carry the load on the defensive line? Who's going to carry the load in the defensive secondary? But it's those linebackers on the inside that you have a lot of confidence and a lot of optimism about. I want to get to a couple of things that I'm going to really enjoy talking about, I think, various times this year and already have various times throughout the offseason. One of those is a headline you always love to see, local boy makes good. And John Curry has got an opportunity to fit that bill for the Red Raiders this season, LBK native. But the other one I love talking about, Chris, my guy Mike Dingle. You have a name?
Kosai Eldridge.
How could I forget Kosai Eldridge?
Kosai.
Thank you for the reminder.
Cowan and I would like to formally apologize. This happens to me often. The longer you do this, the more names you remember. And that's because he was really, really good and very
and
versatile.
Had a chance to. We thought maybe he would come back. We waited on pins and needles. Didn't work out from like an NCAA standpoint, I think.
But Kosai and Krishan were so good there that we were like, how do you replace this little duo? So apologies.
Shout out to Kosai.
I hope that he accepts that. Okay, you're talking about Mike.
Yes,
Dingle,
because he was a violent man on the football field. So please, the deepest of apologies. But yeah, one of the guys I love to consider the possibilities of and the potential for is Mr. Mike Hell-Bent for Leather Dingle. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And summertime means baseball, burgers, and money in the bank when you're picking a winner with FanDuel. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer by beating the heat with a refreshing parlay. An over-under play, or by getting the moneyline mojo working. Visit FanDuel.com and make a splash by adding a big win to your summer bucket list with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. One of the guys I love to consider the possibilities of and the potential for is Mr. Mike Hell-Bent for Leather Dingle. Reckless abandon when he's on the field. He's going to make something happen. Maybe sometimes make the coaches pull their hair a little bit, but other times you're just glad that this dude is always playing full tilt at 110 miles per hour. And I want to get into, from Coach Bookbinder once again, some thoughts on Dingle, including he'll transition into an answer regarding his offseason, because we weren't quite sure exactly maybe where Dingle was going to be lining up this year. Spent some time at the star position within spring camp, but sounds like he's back in the inside linebackers room, but maybe not where he's going to be confined exclusively. I'll get back to Coach Bookbinder and allow him to explain.
He's one of those guys that's competing. So he's back, in the linebacker room. It was really good for him to play some star in the spring. Added kind of to his arsenal, what he can do and where he can fit in this defense. Coach Druder likes to move pieces around. So I think he learned, again, another facet of the defense, but he's back there, he's competing, doing a really good job. Part of it was some of the time he was in a yellow jersey in the spring. There's less contact at star. He's recovering from an injury. And so that was kind of, as a coaching staff, a way for us to get him more reps on the field with probably some less contact than being in the box at backer. So that was one of the factors. Also, his skill set we thought it'd be something for him to add, again, like I said, to his arsenal, be able to play some different packages that TD has. He might be able to flex out and play in the slot.
Another interesting layer for Mike Dingle, now the versatile Mike Dingle. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, because he's listed at 6'2", 220, but he's I don't know if the right word is smaller. He just doesn't look that way because he's so fast. And I think you can do some different things with him. I don't know if he's a natural interior linebacker, but he's definitely an outside or one of the hybrid types like that they utilize with the star position. He's just got so much speed. And I think you said it very well a second ago. Something's happening when he's out there. I mean, there's never, in all the years I've done the sideline stuff for Tech football, I've never seen the sideline react to a younger player collectively like, ooh, let's see what Mike does. Yeah. Because whether he just is running around and going to climb on the pile, or he's going to make a mistake, or whether he's going to make the play, all the above. Everybody last year when this kind of when he debuted, it was a collective. Everybody be quiet. Watch, Mike's out there now. Like, go get him, Mike. And it is pretty. I got a kick out of it just because he's kind of. There's a little crazy, a lot of speed, a lot of youth. So do you know the scheme? You know the play call. You know what you're supposed to be doing. Are you gonna end up in the backfield and make the play, or are you gonna go the wrong way? And I mean, I don't know. But it was because if he makes a mistake, it will be full speed. He's not worried about his body. Like injury be damned. I'm throwing that 220 around violently, and we'll just see what happens. And he's just got this smile on his face. But I mean, again, we're talking a Wes Kitley level athlete that can compete for the track program when he got here because of some of the things that he does. But I hope that he is healthy and gets into it a little bit, because I guarantee you're going to get an audience again, at least on the sideline, from folks wanting to see what he's going to do.
Well, you can call him explosive, and you may think that only ties into the speed, but man, he's got some pop to him. He's one of those guys. I know I've described guys like this on the show before, where it's not always the biggest guy that is the most explosive as far as physical contact is concerned. Sometimes there are guys whose measurables don't necessarily justify the violence that they're able to inflict upon the opponent. And I kind of view him that way. Whatever it is, he's got dynamite in that hat. And I'm sure some of the speed doesn't hurt, Chris, but there's just an explosiveness to him whenever it comes to contact that I really love to see. And, man, I'm right there with you. I hope from a health standpoint there'll be some good luck there so he can stay on the field. He was one of those guys last year that I felt like, as we were having like red shirt conversations and things like that, like how many times can we see him out there, et cetera, that it was kind of frustrating to balance that, because I'm just wanting all the Mike Dingle that there is to have as far as him being on the field. So he's one of my favorite Red Raiders going right now. He hadn't quite had his breakout year or breakout moment necessarily, but I think it's coming just around the corner. And you always know if there is a guy that fires up his teammates in the way that you're describing, that's a guy to keep an eye on, because those are the dudes who are seeing it daily, who are seeing it in practice and are seeing what others aren't seeing. So I would not recommend a popcorn break if Dingle is on the field. Go ahead and stay in the seat. But let's get Chris we'll wrap up our.
He needs a nickname. I mean, we've got to figure out a nickname for Mr. Dingle, because there's something there to like to basically sum up it's not a popcorn break when he's out there, man. I mean, like I'm telling you, you don't want to miss it. No. Something will happen.
That's right. We just hope it's something good.
If you have ideas out there, let us know.
Well, but that's the kind of guy, right, that there can be some frustration every once in a while. Sure. And hopefully that lessens as the years go on and he gets more comfortable and more acclimated and more studied in what he's being asked to do. But that's the kind of guy that a coach is always going to roll the dice on, right? Like, hey, I'm going to take a chance that this guy's going to make a momentum changing type of play possibly, even though there could be a mistake here or there.
Because I think that what they've tried to teach him is the versatility. they don't want to box him in into this is what you are. So let's spread your wings a little bit. But here's what they can't teach. They can't teach the speed, the quick twitch, the violence, the want to, all of those things. He's got it in spades. And like that's what you can't teach. So once we can get you pointed in the right direction and we give you some different options on some different positions that we can play, we can now, use you in what we're trying to get done. And he could, whether he's an every down kind of player right now or even just more of a specialty player, there is a use for Mike Dingle if he's healthy right now, without a doubt.
100%. Yeah. And some of what we're hearing there is that he could be used all over the field in a variety of packages. So you never quite know where we may see him coming from. Before we get out of here today, Chris, let's wrap up the conversation with one that I'm really excited about. I don't know how quickly we're going to see him make an impact or really get on the field on a consistent basis, but it's kind of sounded like it may be a little bit quicker than I anticipated, at least coming into fall camp or coming into this offseason. And we're talking about John Curry, West Texan, LBK native, and someone that, at least according again to Coach Bookbinder, seems to have put himself in a position to really factor in this year. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite event again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app where you're going to find the best last-minute deals, and I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. And of course, you're always doing it at the lowest price guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that final brat, that final beer at your own pace at the tailgate, because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. Gametime gives you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. And we're talking about John Curry, West Texan, LBK native, and someone that, at least according again to Coach Bookbinder, seems to have put himself in a position to really factor in this year.
John's put himself in a position to play a lot of football for us this year. So, I mean, he's continuing to grow, right? There's still some stuff as a young guy that he's learning on a daily basis, kind of trial by fire. But he's a smart guy. He's put in a lot of time and effort to get where he's at, and he's going to help us this fall.
And I think some of what will help you make up for being a newcomer or maybe someone that's got a little ways to go physically is what you're able to do between the years, and obviously dedicating himself to that aspect as well. And he's a Red Raider, wanted to be a Red Raider, son of Jolie Ayers, who I just recently learned. I didn't even connect those dots, but there is red and black in his veins, so I'm sure he takes it very personally.
And there are family members of our man JC that watch this podcast on a daily basis.
Double salute.
Yes, and Jolie is about as quality of a human as you will ever meet. And it's really fun for somebody like you and I to watch somebody's, like when because Jolie was a really good player. She corrected me the other day, and I'm like, we were talking about something, and I said, "Will you play the Coliseum?" And she's like, "No." I was, I thought she was at that time frame where the Coliseum and into the arena. She's like, "Nope." Well, my whole career was in the arena, and I'm like, I felt bad. This has been, I think, really fun for that whole crew to watch John grow up here, excel in a variety of sports over at Lubbock Coronado, and then get to live out his dream. I'll tell you, he's not quite as tall, but I'll tell you who he reminds me of from back in the day. I'm going way back here. Because of how smart he is and just kind of the way he plays, because he plays kind of long. And what I mean by he's got a lot of range, is John Saldi. I think that's kind of what he reminds me of. John Saldi was just always around the football. The defenses that John Saldi was on way back in the day in those early 2000s weren't very good, but your defense now is in a much better spot. John Saldi also didn't have people to learn from like John is getting to do and be around. But this is a very bright young man that Mike will, whatever you want to teach him, green dot him, whatever, he will be able to handle it like a champ. He was a stud baseballer in high school, but I think felt like this was the best thing for him and what he was the most passionate about. But this is why you feel so good about this position group. You don't graduate anybody from this group, man. I mean, like, I hope people understand that this is why you kept Jacob Rodriguez out of that Texas game at the end of the year. I think that this group, and it, most of it, I should say, like 80% of it is all back here. Like the Bens, the Jacobs, I think, obviously the Justin Horns and John Currys, and there's just so many folks that of what you expect to be regular contributors should be back. And I think Bryce may be the one that I have that question about. I'm not sure if he's got the extra year or not, or if he'll use it, but that's what makes you feel so good about. You have the here and the now. You've got the developmental pieces that are knocking on the door and ready to, because they were talking positive about John back in the spring. Like, oh, yeah, this is going to happen. And nothing has changed since then. If anything, he's gotten bigger, and he's at about 225 now, and he's going to get thrown out there. But so many of these guys are too going to fill up every special teams unit as well. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work.
Let's take a listen to John himself sitting here. You'll see on the screen with Justin Horn. John talking about his progress so far as a Red Raider.
I mean, the offseason fall camp so far, I've just been, trying to build off of what I've done this whole time being here. The things I did good in the spring, I want to continue doing them good, and the things I lacked in, I want to increase and get better at. I mean, just overall, I felt like I had a good grasp on the defense, but I feel like I need to get to that next level and just make sure, I know not only my job or my other linebacker's job, but I need to know what all 11 people are doing on the field, just so I can understand how things work and understand that, hey, if they're doing something else over here, I need to go replace them or something like that.
Only can be described, I guess, if he's factoring in, maybe it sounds like he'll have a chance to, as ahead of schedule, or was this somebody that you think since he signed up, hey, look out, this guy could be on the radar sooner rather than later?
Early enrollee, so it's harder to say ahead of schedule when they because it jumpstarts the entire process. But no, I don't think ahead of schedule. I think this is maybe a bit earlier than you would have, but this is kind of where it's at. I mean, this is you need him to be ready right now, and I think he's handled it perfectly. But that early enrollee part of it is the key there. But it's just, people don't understand how much different the college game is, the mental part of it compared to what they do in high school. In high school, it's see ball, go find it, tackle it, use your athleticism, your measurables. And yeah, there's some complexities to it. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. However, in college, man, especially at this level, there may be 50 calls on a Saturday afternoon defensively, and you have to know every one of them. And if you listen to John recently, he kind of talked about, it's not just me knowing about what I'm supposed to do and what maybe the guy next to me is supposed to do, but I'm trying to get to the point where I understand where everybody is supposed to be and grasp the why. So if something happens, I can adjust accordingly, or I understand accordingly. And that it takes time. Justin Horn, I think, is said something very similar. In Tim's system, once you get it, it's simple. Getting to the simple part of it is the hard part, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It seems pretty simple, but yet there's just a lot going on there, and it takes a bit to get from A to B there.
Good stuff, man. Enjoyed talking about these guys we're so excited to see on the field in 2024. Go ahead and get the calendar out, mark off another weekend that is soon to go by. Sans football, meaning we're closer to a football weekend. Chris, enjoyed it as always, man. Thanks for the time all week long, and have a great weekend.
Yeah, and to Jolie, to Lane, and to Ryan possibly. Yeah, shout out to the Ayers, Curry, that whole Loose clan, everything like that. Appreciate you watching what we do here. I found out they were watching, and I'm like, y'all watch it? And they're like, yes, don't miss an episode. I'm like, man, respect. Appreciate that.
For sure.
Yeah, that's fair. I appreciate that. Anyway, I appreciate everybody. We had a good week. We're 1 week closer.
That's right.
Closer. So we will talk to you next time.
Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. As always, thanks for making us your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Football right here on the Locked On Podcast Network on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And one of the best ways to help us grow the show is to comment anything below. So go on and get busy. Appreciate those who are doing that on the regular. Thanks to the everydayers out there. Thanks to Chris, and thanks to you for being out there in general. Whatever day you can make us a part of yours, we appreciate it. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.